interrupt your program to bring you this important podcast. How to 911.
Can you put me out of service on a podcast, please?
Welcome back, guys, to How to 911. This is another special episode where we have a special guest, but before that, I'm going to get back into who we are. I'm Sami.
I'm Erica.
And we have a police officer from the Loveland Police Department with us, and I'll let him talk.
My name is Officer Gates.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Welcome to
Thanks.
this podcast. What do you do here at Loveland Police Department?
So I'm assigned to the patrol division.
Okay.
I just transitioned off of DUI enforcement team and am now part of the day shift.
Okay. Do you like day shifts?
So after 16 years of law enforcement, this is my first rotation ever on day shift. I've done 2 FTO phases in day shift, and other than that, I've never worked day shift.
Oh, gosh.
It's a different cat.
Yes.
Definitely is. Oh, good.
So-
In the daytime.
Yeah.
So you said that you worked with enforcement for...
I did, yeah. So I worked for the
I
Northern...
was like something, what was I saying?
Yeah, so I just transitioned off to the Northern Colorado RAID team, which
Mhm.
means remove all impaired drivers. And it's a grant-funded task force comprised of local agencies and the
Mhm.
county that focus on impaired driving enforcement in Larimer County.
Okay, so kind of piggybacking off of that, what is the most effective way to report drunk drivers in the Loveland area?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's 2 ways. So STAR CSP, which is what you see on the billboards out on the interstates and whatnot. So that's STAR 277. So STAR CSP, when you call that, that goes to the regional dispatch center for CSP down in Denver. And then they transfer out those what you would call ready reports. So that's report every drunk driver immediately. So those calls then get dispatched out to the counties or cities where you're calling someone in. So if you're at I-25 in Eisenhower and you dial STAR CSP, then that goes to the regional dispatch center, and then they would dispatch a trooper to that since it's on I-25. But for example, if someone would get off on Highway 34 and come into the city of Loveland, then CSP would transfer that ready to you guys in dispatch.
Yeah.
So, and the other way is to call 911. So I always encourage people, and I'm sure as dispatchers you may not like this, but if to just call 911, right? Because if you're in Loveland and you call 911, it goes to the Loveland Dispatch Center, right? So then that's probably the quickest and most effective way to notify us, when I say us, Loveland dispatchers, police officers, that you're following a possible drunk driver or a ready report.
Yeah. And I think we like that too, because there's times where like it comes into us and someone's driving in from the canyon. So technically they're starting in like Larimer County's jurisdiction, but they're driving into Loveland. So we can get that started before they even enter our jurisdiction per se and get somebody looking for them. So, or we can get you like CSP transferred to the correct agency in which the driver is in. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So I always encourage people, if you're in the city, call 911. We have a lot of occasions too where people will call somebody in and they're not impaired. They may just be an older driver, inexperienced driver, texting, whatever it may be. But I always tell people that you will make a difference if you continue to call those in.
Yeah.
Right.
And eventually, whether it's the first time you call somebody in or the 10th time you call somebody in, one, it's part of our job, so it's not annoying to go look for that. For me, it's, that's my passion is DUIs, so I don't mind going and looking for those.
Right.
So always call, always call, always call. You could save a life.
Right.
And
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
I like 911 too, because if you really do think it's someone's impaired, a non-emergent line, we might have to put you on hold.
Right.
But a 911, I'm able to talk to you right away, get your location if you aren't sure, if you're not familiar, if you are coming in from Estes and you're like, I don't know where I am exactly, or I can get you over to another agency if you're headed up to Fort Collins or something.
Right.
Quickly.
And then to touch on what you said about like, you don't know if it's just distracted driving or whatever, like there's times where like those people have been having medical emergencies and they can't drive very well because of what's going on. So you are potentially saving not only like their life if they are having a medical emergency and you just think it's poor driving, you just never know the situation. So it's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely, and it could absolutely be a medical issue, and I haven't had very many of them in my career, but very, very much a possibility that somebody's having a diabetic reaction, having a seizure or something.
Right.
So not only, again, you're right, are you saving, that person's life, but you're also saving the life of others on the road.
Right, which is super important. And so when we are taking those 911 calls, especially for ready reports and just distracted driving in general, we ask the callers if they're willing to take a statement or give a statement to an officer. What does that mean exactly as them being the caller willing to give a statement?
Right, so that's super important, right?
Yeah.
So in Colorado, there's case law that says if a citizen is concerned enough to call in, and this is just abbreviated, right?
Right.
But if a citizen is concerned enough to call in about someone's driving, that gives us probable cause to stop that vehicle based on your statement. So yes, meaning giving a statement, what I do is I always provide my email address and ask them to just email me a short email about, what they saw, where it happened, what made them so concerned to call it in. Because it does take some courage to call those things in, right? Because, I think, and I've talked to my wife about this before, like you don't want to be wrong and you don't want to inconvenience somebody, but how many times is too many times going over the center line or driving into oncoming traffic or passing on the shoulder? How many times is enough to get you to call in?
Yeah.
So if you're concerned enough to say, geez, I wonder if this person's drunk, to me, and this is what I tell my wife again, that should make you concerned enough to call us.
Yeah.
So we can check it out. And again, it's not of any inconvenience, to us to go check those out. But back to the statement that's what I would do is I just text you my email address and I say, hey, can you write me a statement about why you were concerned enough to call in? And that's it. So some of these, yes, there is the chance that you may have to testify in court. I wish I could put a percentage on, how many times out of 10 that you might have to testify in court, but I can't do that.
Right.
I would like to say it's 0 out of 10 because we would put together a stellar case enough to not have to go to court, but there's always that chance.
Right. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that their statement is enough for you to pull them over without you having your own probable cause. But if you're able to witness those actions yourself, you still would like their statements, or is it still needed, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, if you tell me the vehicle is westbound on Eisenhower going into the canyon, and as I catch up to that vehicle, I see it weave over into the oncoming lane of traffic, I'll stop that person based on my probable cause now that they failed to maintain a single lane. But if it's something where, I just get behind the vehicle and I stop them right away, that's where your statement would come into play to make sure that we have probable cause for that stuff.
Okay, cool. We ask our questions of when people are calling in, trying to report readies, what do you want the public to know? What should they be prepared to answer when they are when they are calling in reporting a drunk driver?
Just those, be descriptive on the actions. Are they weaving? Did they hit a pole? Did they pass on the shoulder? Again, I would just tell people to think about, those driving actions that aren't normal that made you concerned enough to call in. And then obviously if you're, coming down the canyon and you're not sure where you're at, look at a street sign that you pass and say that you're, passing the Carter Lake Road, coming into Loveland. But location for us is key. And I know that some folks decide to follow and, some folks are advised not to follow. So it's always good to have a good direction of travel, location, and a description of the vehicle. If you can get the license plate safely, that helps us to maybe track that person down to make sure, if they are having a medical emergency, that we get them the help they need. But if they're not, then to address the DUI appropriately.
Yeah.
Is there anything legal, like if something happens and they were following? Because I tell them sometimes, like, don't follow. I don't want you to put yourself in harm's way, even though they're driving and weaving and whatnot. But is there something that's on that end, the legal side, that if something happened, they'd be liable or not liable, or if the car had an accident. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you know, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if, you know, if they're following someone, and maybe that driver kind of catches on that they're following, and then they start making evasive maneuvers and crash. I don't know what the repercussions or the ramifications could be for that person. I would think that, you know, you're acting as a good Samaritan, right? You know, you're trying to, you know, make sure our community is safe. So, but I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did.
No, that's good. Helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Just want to touch base again. Like, please don't follow people that you think are driving erratically, because it's just really unsafe for you. It's unsafe for other drivers, and we appreciate you calling in to try to get them off the road, but we also want to keep your safety. Like, our first priority is to make sure not to create more of a bad situation than it already is. But if you feel safe enough to follow, we will always advise you not to. Yeah. Just a little forewarning.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably the best policy.
Yeah.
You know, just make sure that you're safe. You know, and if you can continue to give an update, direction of travel, that would be great. Because as you know, Loveland's a pretty big city, pretty spread out. So, you know, the officer that's responding to that call at Cascade and Eisenhower may be at I-25 and Eisenhower at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It may take some time to get there to address that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that you want to touch base on in regards to ready reports?
No, just always call.
Yeah.
Always call. Inundate us with ready calls. It's okay. It's okay. We want our community to be safe. And so I actually carry an obituary every day from the young man that got killed up on North Wilson, Gavin Myers. So, you know, when I think about ready reports and I think about how we can affect our community, you know, it's a violent crime that can be stopped by just a simple phone call. So don't ever be afraid to call, and you know, we'll do what we can to help. And there's so many officers on our department that have specific training, and there's a few of us that have even more advanced training in detecting impaired drivers that are under the influence of things other than alcohol. That you know, we'll do our due diligence to make sure that person's good to go.
Okay, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that too.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
definitely. Well, I guess that's it.
Okay.
Yeah? Do you want to talk about anything else?
No.
No?
Nothing?
That's good.
No?
That's
Okay. Well. Hey guys, we're just jumping in here real quick. I know that it's kind of a weird non-transition thing, but you just listened to the interview with Officer Gates. And so we wanted to jump in and talk a little bit more about the 911 side about it. He gave some great points about like the police side and what they need and what he thinks is important to know for the public. So we're gonna kind of just touch on our own things here. By the way, I don't know if we should reintroduce ourselves. Never mind. You know who we are. Hopefully. If not, surprise. Ta-da! Ta-da! So, yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay. So what happens so we know per Officer Gates, we can call 911 for readies.
Yeah, and it's, don't feel embarrassed, don't feel ashamed, don't think like, this isn't a big deal. It's always the thing where it's like, if something is making you concerned enough to make you even question it, I think you should definitely call, because you don't know what they're, like we've said before, like you don't know if they're drunk, you don't know if they're high, you don't know if they're having a medical emergency, you don't know if they're just distracted driving, which is just as dangerous as we possibly have learned from another episode from our traffic officers, I think. Yes, you have already heard that episode, so yes, you learned that as well.
Right. Okay, so we call 911, and our first question is always, 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Right.
So
it's not an address, obviously. Unless you're at like a liquor store seeing this person that's leaving drunk, 99% of the time you're calling on the road driving. So that always throws people off. And I feel like, not that it wastes time, but it definitely takes more time for us to be like, okay, well, what's going on? Because you'll be like, well, it's not an address, but this is what's happening, which is totally fine because we can still put that in the notes of the call and then get the location afterwards. But location is always so important. So even if we answer, what's the address of the emergency? You can say, it's not an address, but I'm driving eastbound on Eisenhower, just crossing Sculptor.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Cross streets, 100 blocks, mile markers if you're on the interstate. But
Businesses.
again, businesses. Don't say I'm at the 7-Eleven, because there's a million of those. You can say the 7-Eleven off of Denver and Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, that's not an intersection. Off of Monroe and Eisenhower. Cheeso. Or the new 7-Eleven, because that one just got built. But mile markers on the interstate, or you can even call star 277, which we said before, to get through to I-20.
The people that dispatched for I-25, which would be Colorado State Patrol.
Listen, it's snowing. I'm sleepy. We're all sleepy. Coffee hasn't hit yet. So
It hasn't? Oh, man.
I know. It's been a rough
Better go
afternoon. Coffee hasn't hit yet.
morning into afternoon. So you said that when people call, they should say, it's on address, it's this intersection. You said right away the direction. Eastbound from Denver and Eisenhower. Oh no, that's an actual intersection.
That is an actual intersection.
that one's accurate. But sometimes people just say, I'm on Eisenhower.
Right.
Or I'm on Denver and Eisenhower. And for me, the next thing, because sometimes they don't hear the question, what's the address of the emergency? So you hear me answer and you say, hey, I see a drunk driver. So I go, okay, where are you? Intersection. And then my next question is, which way are you going? Mm-hmm. Because my officers want to know that right away.
Right. And if you don't know, thankfully we live in Colorado, where the mountains are a very easy judge, or like directions of major cities.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, if you don't know, I'll try to verify and say, okay, are you on Denver or are you on Eisenhower? And if you're on Denver, are you going north or south? If you're on Eisenhower, are you going east or west? To kind of make it, we'll get through this together. Especially in a stressful situation, I can understand. You're just kind of like, oh crap, I can't remember what direction I'm going, or we just turned. Does that mean I'm going eastbound or westbound? So yeah, that's something that obviously I'm more built in to be like, I'm eastbound on Eisenhower. But not everybody's like that. And then also, a lot of careless drivers end up coming in, like Officer Gates talked about, like from the canyon. I wouldn't say a lot, but like that happens a lot.
But it is a lot.
It happens often. More.
Yeah.
I mean, people drive carelessly, and it just coincidentally happens a lot through the canyon. Anyways, I will edit that out because I'm just rambling now. But something also to remember is if you're coming from Fort Collins, or if you're going to Fort Collins, there's a lot of the roads that we have that are the same road but with a different name. So it's always helpful if you know, like College in Fort Collins is Highway 287. For Loveland, that has like 6 different names. So if you say Highway 287, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then when you give us like a cross street, I can plug it in. Like that general name is a lot easier to understand than saying I'm in College in Loveland.
Right.
Because, like, for a second, I'm going to be like, we don't college. What are you talking about? Because I don't think we have a college street here.
No.
Yeah, perfect. And then a lot of people call in, they're like, I'm on Shields. And it's like, that's not a street in Loveland. Or do you mean Taft? Or what's Wilson? Taft Hill. So that's always confusing because Wilson in Loveland is Taft Hill in Fort Collins. And so some people say I'm on Taft Hill. And I'll be like, are you sure you're on Taft Hill or Taft? Because my mind's thinking Taft here, but then I also know of the other one. So, like, clarifying that stuff. So just being aware that, like, road names unfortunately change, especially when you're going city to city.
Yes.
We'll figure it out eventually.
Right.
Because our job is to be aware of those things. It's just a little bit more helpful in a situation that extreme to know those things immediately.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So we know where we are now.
Yes.
What's the next most important thing?
Denver and Monroe.
Denver and Monroe, yep.
The next most important thing would be vehicle description. Because if anything, if you can't bad service, or if you lose sight of the vehicle, direction of travel is obviously the first thing we just talked about, and then the vehicle description, so we know what we're looking for. If you just say it's a small white car, it's helpful because there's not every car is a small white car, but the more descriptive you are, the more aware of the brand, is that what it's called? Make? Thank you. Make and model. The brand. It's Versace.
Yeah. She's driving a Gucci car.
Oh gosh. If you're aware of like make and models, like I know you can just look at a Chevy Tahoe and you know what it looks like. You can just look at a Tacoma and you're like, oh, that's a Toyota Tacoma. Or you can just say it's a Tacoma and I'll be like, oh.
Or
I know what the make of that is, or the brand.
Right. Or a lot of people say, I don't know cars. That's fine too.
Right.
That the size and
brand
color are the really, like it's a large SUV or it's a small SUV or it's a hatchback. If it's white, blue, green, teal, purple.
Right.
Helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And if there's any stickers, stickers are extremely easy to recognize. I know there's like common stickers out there, but I mean, it's just more helpful than just a color and a size. Also, license plates. Those are really helpful. Very, very helpful because we can get information off of those plates and possibly see who the registered owner is and have an attempt of contact at the address that is registered to the vehicle to see what was going on. Are they okay? Are they drunk? Is it a physical disturbance that was happening in the car? Just to follow up on that. Hopefully if they are going to the address, if they're not, then we would still try to go there, but it's just a helpful tool. The license plates, though, I feel like Colorado, it's pretty easy because it's usually like 3 numbers or 3 letters followed by 3 numbers or 3 letters. But O's look like zeros sometimes.
B's look like D's.
Yep. D's look like zeros or O's.
Yeah.
Q's look like O's.
Yep.
We need to get the O out of the alphabet.
Not on a license plate. Sorry, buddy.
Right, or we need to strike through the zero, something. Write your local DMV and write a petition. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. They're probably busy enough already.
Right.
They have their own job. Don't do that. And I'll edit that out. But we will verify that plate because I'm sure, like, everybody knows, like, S's sound like F's sometimes. D's sound like T's.
And P's. And B's. And C's.
And, like, letters sound like letters. So if you're just like, it's DFG, blah, 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 I'm going to be like, well, 1 second. It's D as in dog, G as in George, F as in Frank. Is that what you said? Yes. Okay. I will verify because last thing I need is to get the plate incorrect.
Right.
And then send an officer to the wrong address in case that is, I don't know, in case.
In case they need to go there.
Yeah. There we go.
Perfect.
It's fine. But if you don't catch a plate, don't put yourself in danger to get that plate. Especially if you are on Eisenhower, if you're on 287, like that, those are very busy streets. I don't want you to go racing through traffic and possibly cause an accident, get yourself hurt, or get other people calling you in. That's the last thing that we need. But if you don't have it, that's okay. Calling us and giving us a description and direction of travel is very helpful. And we air those out to our officers that are in the area. If there's an officer that's already in the area and they see that call drop, they're going to pick it up and they're going to start reading notes and trying to figure out where the vehicle is going. Sometimes we'll stay on the line with you. I think it depends. Let me know if I need to edit this out. I'll stay on the line if I know an officer picked up the call and might need further updates. Right. If it is a drunk driver and they are driving very poorly, I will probably stay on the line because if they're starting to drive on the sidewalk, I am probably going to be afraid they're going to crash. Right. So.
And I want to know.
Right, and I want to know. But again, we're not going to, just because we want to keep that updated information, I'm not going to ask for you to keep following the person. I will say, if you're going the same direction, just keep me updated on what direction they're going. If you're not going the same direction and they turn off, please do not follow them. We will get an officer to see if they can locate them. Like, we just don't want to put you in danger. Again, if they're driving that carelessly that you're calling it in, it's just not a safe situation. Yeah.
And I'll just want to go back really quickly. So we got...
Sorry.
No.
I'm like,
no
information.
It's perfect. I was going to say that after we get the description of the car, I will ask, what is it doing? And if you tell me he's just driving all over the road. Well, okay, I will probably have you be more specific. Is he weaving? Is he crossing the double yellow? You tell me he's, just driving poorly.
Oncoming traffic.
Yeah, what does that mean so I can tell my officer? Because they have the exact same question. You are seeing it and you can see that it's the car's being poorly driven, but how can I describe it to someone else?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just ask for some details.
Right.
Specifically, what made you call?
Right. Yeah, we're going to ask what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then another question that Officer Gates already talked about is, are you willing to sign?
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to say, yes, I did in fact witness this event and this poor driving and these actions, and I'm willing to potentially testify and talk to an officer. I mean, like Officer Gates, he already explained it.
Mm-hmm.
It may not go to court, but there is the chance that it will, and you signing that statement says that you will go to court and say, hey, I solemnly swear that this is what happened. Yes. Also, it's helpful, not that you have to go buy dash cams. Almost said a bad word. But that's also helpful for, like, officers, for their evidence and stuff, because there it is. There's a video that says, that's proof. Video is proof.
Yep. I mean, and you can record it on your phone as long as you're not the driver.
Yes. I really appreciate people who, I mean, if you are in this situation and you're able to do this, I appreciate when, like, the driver is driving and the passenger is the one calling, because I don't want to create another distracted driver.
Right.
I mean, I know talking on the phone is legal in Colorado if you're over 18. Is that the law?
We can look that up.
Don't quote me on it.
Because you're not supposed to
that out.
put in data. I mean, calling 911 is fine. Like, that's the exception, yeah.
Is it the exception? Well,
Yeah.
never mind. If you call 911, you can drive and talk on the phone all you want. We will just talk to you like, hey, buddy.
I'm on 911. I can do this.
Look, officer, I'm speaking to your dispatch. But if you are driving and trying to get somewhere, you're also, like, trying to pay attention to the road, and I don't want you to be so focused on trying to get that plate again or any other further information. If you don't know, then you don't know. That's totally fine. We'll still get the information that you do know out to the officers. But we don't want to create a worse situation than it already is.
So it says that adult drivers 18 and over are permitted to use their handheld phone for calls while driving. They can have a headset with allowed in one ear for phone calls. Minor drivers cannot make phone calls, but it says, can you text message and drive?
Big fat no.
No. 18 and over are prohibited from manual data entry, which includes text messages and using the internet. Also, minor drivers don't do that. No one do that. No one text and drive.
Yeah, it's so unsafe.
I think that using your Bluetooth is safer.
Right.
While driving.
Right.
And calling, but
if there just might be an off chance so that I might not be able to hear you, and I might be like, hey, can you take me off your Bluetooth for a second?
And if that was me, I'd be like, no, because my phone's in my bag.
And I'm like, can you talk louder to me then?
I'd be like, okay, here we go.
Start screaming.
I'm going eastbound on... You asked for it.
I did ask for it. It's like when people ask for me to talk louder, I'll do it.
Right. Okay, yeah. And my partners in the room will be like,
right.
Ooh.
Right. We're like, sorry. But I mean, phone connections are just poor. And like, depending, if there's a hailstorm outside, I definitely probably can't hear you over Bluetooth.
Right.
And it's hailing.
Like you said, there's something, I mean, the canyon, reception is poor up there. Anyway, like spotty. Mm-hmm. But it could be, sometimes you just need to talk louder, and that's fine. Yeah.
And depending on where your microphone is in your car, if you're trying to look at the person that's driving poorly and they're beside you and you're talking into your window, I probably can't hear that.
Right. Exactly.
What else do you want to talk about? What else would you like to point out?
I think we hit it all.
I don't think we really planned on having 2 separate segments.
Mm-hmm.
It was just weird. We're weird. Here we are.
Same. I mean, same. Yep.
Same.
That's how weird we are. Agreed.
So yeah, here's the hopefully smooth transition into the outro. Goodbye. Thanks you guys for listening. I don't know when this is coming out, so I don't know what episode's going to be next.
Surprise.
But just follow us on social media. We have Instagram at How-To911 Podcast. We have YouTube at How-To911 Podcast. We have Facebook at Loveland Emergency Communications Center. And then we also have our email, which is howto911 at cityofloveland.org. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It was
of
fun.
course. Until then, you guys know where you are, know your phone number, and tell us exactly what happened.